So is Gunung Padang really the oldest pyramid in the world? Like Discover magazine is asking on the basis of this controversial thing. And so there's the link to the article where that headline is from. No, it's not. As Flint Dibble in his great debunking tweets has pointed out, the charcoal layers that have been dated that show when the construction was done, these charcoal layers are all less than 2,500 years old. It's about 2,300, 2,100. So just before the Common Era. That's when the temple was built. Why else is it not the oldest pyramid? Because it's not a pyramid. Pyramids have to have square or triangular bases, right? Pyramid that is oval shaped. So it is neither the oldest pyramid, nor is it even a pyramid. It's a terraced temple on the top of a hill with a ridge slope, a ridge line along it. There are a lot of these pseudo-archaeological claims about ancient pyramids where they're actually just pointing at natural landscapes. This happened right after the premiere of that episode. So the expert that Graham Hancock cited is Dr. Hillman, as he's called, Danny Hillman, or Natawijaja, pardon my bad pronunciations. He is the leader of a geology team that has been arguing for more than a decade that this is a 25,000-year-old pyramid, or 18 to 25,000-year-old pyramid. And he has radiocarbon dated the base of the structure and C14 dates. So isotopic dating, you date decay of radioactive isotopes in organic remains of carbon, and the rate of decay is how we date using carbon-14. And so he's dated the physical structure, as he calls it, at the base of the pyramid, and he managed to get a research article claiming this. Didn't mention Atlantis, because you don't put that in mainstream archaeology journals, but he managed to get this published in Archaeological Prospection. But then by March of this year, the journal retracted the article. They retracted the article for reasons that we'll get into in a second. But this was the major controversy that was right before the Joe Rogan podcast interview. So right before Flint and Hancock sat down, this was like the smoke was still clearing on this major journal retraction, which is being hyped as a super big scandal by the pro-Atlantis crowd, because they're saying, look, this guy did all the right stuff. He got it through a proper peer-reviewed academic journal. It was published. And then what happened? People like mean old Flint Dibble and all these mean old archaeologists started complaining about how it was bad. And then the journal said, whoops, and said, did we publish this? No, we didn't mean to do that. And they retracted it. And so literally the proponents have been blaming people like Flint, not just Flint. Flint, they haven't singled me out because I'm not prominent enough. I'm not a big enough name for them to know who I am. But among my friends on social media, I know most of the skeptical archaeologists who tweet and use Facebook to talk about Graham Hancock and why he's wrong, right? And so I know most of these guys, and so they get the blame. People, both the grassroots on social media and the big guns like Graham Hancock, say that Flint and his colleagues put pressure on in the media. And the accusation is that this caused the journal to get cold feet and pull it back and humiliate the author. And so I just want to say, and he called Flint Dibble the witch finder general. He compared it to an inquisition, like with ancient heretics being burned at the stake for believing things that were not orthodox. And so this is representing mainstream archaeology as a dogmatic orthodoxy with like codes of belief, and you have like, you can't believe in ancient Ice Age civilizations or else we will retract your articles. This is what they're saying. And this is not true. And I'll show you how on the next slide. If you look at the retraction, you'll notice that the only article that has cited this in the citation metrics is a Nature News article from November of 2023. This was published in late October, and the investigation which led to the retraction happened in November of 2023. So what do you see where I'm coming at, Derek? Yeah. Are you reading between the lines?
Yeah, bottom right, citation 1, Nature, 28th November 2023. Seems to be Nature citing it. So we should look at Nature, correct?
So Nature is citing it. And in that article, they're saying this journal is investigating this paper for possible retraction. So in other words, the process of the retraction took 5 months. It happened right before the podcast interview, which was after all the social media stuff. The social media stuff was coincidental. The reason why the journal was retracted is because of people internal to the journal, right? It was the journal editors and peer reviewers reviewers that were already in contact with the editors. They red flagged it as soon as it was published, right? The wheels were rolling on this retraction the day it appeared in print, and that had nothing to do with Flint Dibble. It had nothing to do with any of the other boogeyman, mean, real art, PhDs who don't like Graham Hancock. They didn't get this retracted.
But let me push back just 1 second in order to kind of maybe help people who are viewing this. And in this case, let's just suppose that experts in the field were reaching out saying, you really should investigate this because this looks to be like a bunk piece, or this looks to be a bit conspiratorial. Right. Not based on the evidence. The people who are pushing or peddling the pro-Atlantean, pro-ancient ice age, pre-younger Dryas civilizations, advanced technology, ancient aliens, all of that, they're still going to use this propagandistic conspiracy. They're out to get us. The 1%ers they want to hide this truth. All this, you name it, the list of different things are going to be used. Yeah. No matter what, whether or not this was just authentically within, as you're pointing out, or if there's another case where experts are chiming in going, what is this? You're like putting out nonsense. They would still use this as kind of a weaponized propaganda to get their followers, their constituency, to be on their side no matter what.
So all that's true. And I think that the retraction has ironically brought more attention to that. And so I think there's different constituencies with different interests here. The reason why it was in the journal's interest to do this is because the journal was worried about their own reputation.
Right.
They're not worried about archaeology as a discipline. They're not worried about what other people in other parts of the academy think. Mm-hmm. This journal is only concerned about their reputation as a geoarchaeology journal. Geoarchaeology is a serious, hardcore, very strong scientific discipline, right? And if they wanted to be the Atlantis journal, right, they could have left this be. But because of the publicity surrounding Graham Hancock's show, which everyone had seen because it had premiered the year before, right? Everyone already knew about this stuff because Graham Hancock had been promoting it. So Graham Hancock promoted it. This article gets published. People who are aware of the problems based on Graham Hancock's promotion, I'm sure a lot of them from various places might have reached out here, but it was mainly the people who were publishing in the journal themselves, because this journal at the same time was publishing articles critical of this stuff, right? Like literally in the same issue that this came out, there were other issues that were other articles that were kind of diametrically the opposite. So it's those authors and peer reviewers who are the ones whose personal reputations are on the line, right? Because their own publication is getting tainted by association with this bad piece. So I don't necessarily support retractions in general. I think retractions should only be done. My personal view is retractions should only be done for clear academic dishonesty, like plagiarism, things like that. Those should, or malfeasance where people are deliberately doing studies wrong. The fact is that there was none of that here. No one thinks that these guys are dishonest. They think that they're just wrong. And why are they wrong? They're wrong because what they carbon dated was just dirt. And they claim that there are structures there, but no one agrees. No archaeologist agrees with them. There's one archaeologist in the paper, but he's not a specialist in the relevant area. And entirely a team of geologists. And what was the journal's mistake? The journal's mistake was they only asked geologists to do the peer review. So when it ran through the peer review, there were no archaeologists that I'm aware of that did the reviews, right? It was reviewed entirely by geoscientists, and the geoscientists were reviewing the quality of the geological testing, right? They were saying this radiocarbon date was run correctly, right? They were saying, and the geological arguments held water, but where it failed was they were arguing that there were built structures where there weren't any. They're doing natural rock slides. There are like natural cavities that form. It's a basalt. It's basically a bunch of columns of basalt that have cracked out of old lava beds, and they're pushed up on these hills. And when they built the temple, they hauled a bunch of these basalt columns up and built the temple structure out of the basalt columns. And then these basalt columns erode and slide down the hill. And at the base of the hill, there are some, eroded structural elements that might have come down from rock falls and things. But most of what's at the base is just natural hill, right? The temple is on the top. So when he drills a 40-foot core deep into the hillside and extracts organic material from 40 feet below the surface, and he declares in the paper that that's in the middle of a buried structure that we see with remote sensing, radar, like these high technology gadgets that you use to look under the surface of the ground. Any archaeologist or good geoarchaeologist knows. I did it for my master's work. I did an archaeological excavation in Michigan where we used geophysics for archaeologists to look inside of big earth structures. And how did we determine determine whether the structures were what we thought we were, not just with the geophysics. You can't just use these blurry images from your radar. What do you have to do? Physically dig it up, right? The only way to prove that it is what you think it is to dig it up. So basically he's saying, this looks like a structure. He digs dirt out of the base of the hill, radiocarbon dates it, and guess what? 40 feet below the mountain, you have Ice Age dirt. So yes, this hill has been there since the Pleistocene. It didn't have any human activity on top, or, there were hunters and gatherers living around there. They didn't build massive temples on top of the hill in the Ice Age. Those are less than 2,000 years old.